Good morning, Rabbi Boisai. Rabbi Boisai, brand new Mishnah, easier stuff. Ve'elu devarim, all the way in the bottom of Mem Beis and Beis. Ve'elu devarim she'ein chayav maleim shum pigol. There are things that if you eat, even though you had the thought of pigol, you're not going to be over on pigol. And the idea is because these items don't have a matir. What's a matir? If we look at, let's say, the carbon, the meat of the carbon, so when you sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, that blood is a matir. That allows you to eat the carbon. But the blood itself that goes on the mizbeach doesn't have anything to be matirit. The koimetz, this is the kmitza, right? That part that's in the hand and it goes onto the mizbeach, there's nothing that's matter it. So yes, the rest of the mincha, if you eat, is pigul, but that actual kmitza itself, nothing's matter it. So if you eat that, you're not over, you don't get the karas. Toiris. Oh, back to. I think we could drop the music once in a while. Say it. So that's toiris. That what twice a day, Kohen brings toiris onto the mizbeach hazav. In the heichal, the entire k'taris goes up in flames, it's burnt. There's nothing left of it, so there's no matter to the k'taris. There's nothing afterwards that allows you to do something with the k'taris. V'alavayna, his levayna, that's the frankincense that's on top of the mincha. Levayna also, all of it goes onto the mizbeach, and it doesn't have a matter. U'minchas koyhanim, minchas koyin. Let's say if Kohen wants to bring in a dava, all of it goes on the mizbeach. Uminchas, here, the Kohen, Hamashiach, the Kohen Gadol, every single day brings like, maybe we could call it like a pita-looking mincha. Half of it goes in the morning, half of it in the afternoon. Twice a day, he brings the mincha, all of it goes onto the mizbeach. There's no eating from it. Because if there's eating, so then the stuff that you eat is he's matter that, but there's nothing matter the actual mincha. Ba'adam. And the blood itself, this is a little gory actually. Okay, ba'adam. V'hanesachim abayim b'fnei atzum. Here's the sachim. Now, let me pause that for a second. There's two types of nesachim that come by themselves. There's a nesachim when a Yisrael or anybody says, I want to bring a carbon takadosh baruch hu. It will consist of flour and wine, and he brings the flour and the wine, whatever the ingredients are, and he brings that to the Beis HaMikdash. There's another type. When you bring an oila, it comes together with nesachim. You have to bring the wines. But if you brought it that day, you could afford it, and you schlepped it, great. What if you didn't bring it that day? You can bring it next month, next year, 5 years from now. There's no limit. So, when you bring the nesachim by themselves, whether it's because there's no animal attached to it, because you're just bringing the nesachim, or there is an animal, it's not so attached to it because it happened 3 days ago, but you bring it now, you're making up the nesachim that you owe. So those don't have a matter.
But if you bring it with the carbon?
Divrei Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir would say though that if you brought it with the carbon, it's not by itself, then the carbon is matter, that wine. And if you eat the wine, drink the wine, you're over karas, chayav karas. Chacham say, and this makes a lot of sense, at least to me. What difference does it make when you bring the nesachim? Since you can bring the nesachim next month, so they're not connected to the animal. So what if you brought it today with the animal? Everybody's going to say no, but today that you brought it with the animal, then the animal is the matter. Now I'm going to say no, they're not connected. Yes, you bring it together, you bring it afterwards, you can bring it together, but they're not connected. MMA the behema is not matter the wine, ever. Loik shemesh mitzayra. So there's a whole process. We saw the video a number of times already. I'm not going to show it again. The mitzayra, he spoke Lashon Hara, whatever he did, he has a blotch on his head. He comes to the Beis HaMikdash, he has to bring 3 korbanos. It's a whole process. One of the karbanos is the asham. The blood from the asham, you have to do all the sprinkling inside out. Then he comes and he puts some of the blood on his right thumb, right toe, right here. And on top, once he does that, then he's able to bring the loig shemen. It's a certain amount of oil. There's a whole process with the oil. The kohen has to go into the heichal, sprinkle it 7 times, comes out, puts the oil on top of where the blood was, on the right thumb, on the right toe, on the right ear. But it's only after he applies the blood from the asham. So, he says that since this oil could come tomorrow, the same svara as we said a second ago with the wine, it could come in a month from now. Let's say the Mitzayir forgot. It's not good for him. He wants to do it right away. He wants to be tar and eat whatever he wants to eat and do whatever he wants to do, go into the Beis Hamikdash. But he forgot the oil, so he could come back next week, come back next year. So therefore, there's no connection between the two. So the blood is not the matter for the oil. First of all, he says, no, you should know that the reason why you can bring it tomorrow and a year from now is because you apply the blood. So the blood is what's matter the oil. And this is the matter. Sometimes you have a matter for a human being that allows a human being to eat stuff, and sometimes you allow the mizbeach to eat the korbanos, the imurim. So that's the matter for the person. That's the matter for the mizbeach. Anytime you have something that's matter, then you have the idea of pigul. Again, pigul is a thought that I'm going to eat this outside the allotted time. If I'm allowed to eat a carbon for 2 days, I'm thinking I'm going to eat it in 3 days from now. I'm going to be makdir. I'm going to put it on the mizbeach in 3 days from now. Ha'oila, the oila, carbon oila, the entire thing goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, goes on the mizbeach. The kohanim don't eat anything from it. Dama matters b'sar mizbeach. Yet there is a matter, the blood. When you sprinkle the blood and you do zrika, that allows you to put the carbon onto the mizbeach. Without the zrika, you cannot put the animal on the mizbeach. And that also allows va'oira l'kohanim. Here's the pasuk. Va'kohanim magir b'zayla ish oir ha'oila, the height of the oila, asher lo goes to the kohen. But only after you do what you need to do with the blood and you sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. Where do we put the oila sa'if? Above the red line. What do you do with it? Mitzui. So let me show you the new mitzui. Okay, so there's 2 motions here. That's motion number 1, that's mitzui. That's to squeeze the blood out of the pigeon onto the mizbeach, onto the corner. Chatos has one more movement. Check this out. Well, that's a lot of blood. But first, he goes like that. It's to emphasize it, to show. You like you're throwing a ball against the wall. You're not hitting the wall. You're from a distance. You're going like this. Then you go over to the mizbeach and you give it a kvetch on the mizbeach. That little kvetch is only by a oila. By chatas, you got both. So he says like this. Yeah, chatas below. Correct. Good point. So it's a little bit of a mistake. Take this kohen guy, take him off to his side and put him on the bottom. He has to be below the red line when he does everything. V'chol sheyesh lo matir said this. Ha'ila domer matters b'sar mizbeach. So when you do the mitzui on the mizbeach, that allows you to put the bird on the mizbeach. The kohen obviously doesn't eat any of the bird. Va'ira la kohanim. I'm sorry. Domer matters b'sar mizbeach. Yeah, chatasoy. Here's a little bit of a shaila. Think about this for a second. How much of a chatas does the kohen get to eat? Of the chatas bird. If a chatas bird, it has about, let's say, a pound of meat, just exaggerate, it has a pound of meat inside of it. How much of that meat goes to the kohen? To eat. You say none of it. I'm talking about chatas, not oila. All of it. Anybody argue?
Everything except for the crop.
All of it. That's the answer. All of the chatas oif goes to the kohen. Chadasoif. Doma matis b'sar lakoyhanim. Doma means the mitzui below the red line. Rabbi said, what's pshat in this above the red line business? Oh, such amaratzis. Okay, below the red line, and the zrika, the hazah, sprinkling towards the mizbeach, hazah and mitzui. Two things. Mitzui is the kvetch. The hazah is the throw, the toss. That allows you to eat the meat of the pigeon. Good pigeon meat. Parim anisrafim, musirim anisrafim. Rabbi Yisai, here's a little bit of a chazara. What parim do you remember that you bring into the heichal? Here they are. Par helam davar, par kohen gadol. That's when he makes a mistake in the halacha. Par helam davar is when the Sanhedrin make a mistake in halacha. Par Yom Kippur, regardless, you have to bring a Yom Kippur, a bull, and you have the sar of Yom Kippur. That's the partner of the guy from the Azazel. Okay. Domam matters a mureim likarev. When you Paranzorim sirum anisrafim. Okay. Sirum, right? He's right. The sar of the zara that we discussed. Domam matters a mureim likarev. Does anybody remember parelam davar? How many bloods do you spray? 11. 7 on the floor, 4 on the thing, ayin on daf mem beis umdal on the top, it says 11. How many Yom Kippur? 43, 47, 48. What does the Gemara say? 43. So what's pshat in 48? 1 extra for the side, and 4 extra for the, if you hold that the bloods of the sire and the para are different. So how do we get to it again? 16, 8 and 8 for the par and the sar. 8 inside the Kodesh Kodashim, that's 16. Inside the Heichel, 8 and 8 is another 16, it's 32. 4 on the Kronos and 7 on top. It's 11. 11 plus 32, 43. So the Gemara. Rabbi Shimon Omer kol sheini al mizbeach hachitzon kishlamim. He says he is side. There is no piggle with all these guys right over here. There's no piggle when it comes to the. I'm fetching my button here, but I guess the Gershon's fighting with me. These 4 guys, there's no piggle. Why? Because it's not like shlamim. The whole pasuk of piggle is said only by shlamim. From shlamim we have to learn out to the other karbanas. And kol sheini al mizbeach hachitzon. If you don't put them on the mizbech hachitzon, on the one in the azara kishlamim, the blood doesn't go on the chitzon. It goes only on the mizbech hapnimi, the mizbech haktaris, the mizbech hazav. And chayavim olav mishum pigol, there's no pigol. So what happens if you do pigol a thought on Yom Kippur? The kohen gadol takes his bull, the Yom Kippur bull, and he thinks I'm doing pigol, and according to him, there's no pigol on it because you apply the blood inside instead of outside. So what happens? It's possible. It's still possible. It's not. You don't get cars, but it's possible. Omerula. He says almost the riddle. You take the kmitza and you put the kmitza on the mizbeach. Poka, it pops out. The pigul flies away, and then he says almost something that seems like a contradiction to what he just said. He says, maybe the pigul. If this kmitza that you put on top of the mizbeach creates pigul for the rest of the mincha. So certainly that kmitz itself should be pigul. But a second ago you just said that the pigul flies away. And now you're telling me that it doesn't fly away. It makes other my comment. What is he talking about? It made a miskabel, similar to a question that we had yesterday on the blood. Remember we said if the blood, you have a machshavas psul in the blood, so the blood becomes like water. How are you doing any of these avodas? So he says also, it made a miskabel if the kmitza of this flour in your hand is not a good carbon, pigul. Since you could create pigul through this carbon, through this mincha, so obviously it is miskabel on the mizbeach. Michael Mashal, what's the big chiddush? If he's coming to tell me that there's no pigul, that if you take a bite out of this flour that you put on the mizbeach, you're not chayav on kares. Tanina, isn't that what we learned in our Mishnah? The first words of the Mishnah, Elu dvarim she'ein chayavim aleim mishum pigul. These are the things. If you take a bite out of it, there's no pigul. Why is there no pigul? Because there's no matir. There's nothing that comes afterwards to make it mutter. The first thing in the list is hakaimetz. And now we get a bunch of freebies because all we care about is the comments right now. So what is Ula coming to be Mechadish? Eladim Alu Lo Yerdu. Tanina. Halon Vayoytzev Atome. These are super bad things. This meat that was left overnight. This meat that went out of the Beis Hamikdash. Meat that is Tome. These are the worst of the worst. What is that called? Pigel. He had intent to that he's going to, while he did the shechita, while he did the shechita, he thought about chutz zmano. While he did the shechita, he thought about chutz mokim. You're not supposed to put it on the mizbeach, but if you put it on the mizbeach, lo yerdu, it doesn't come off. So that can't be what Ula is trying to tell us. Ve'alodim yardu yalu. Oh, here's the chiddush. That if it fell off the mizbeach after you weren't supposed to put it on, it fell off. He comes to be mechadish, you're allowed to re-put it back on. It says Gemara Hanami Tanino. That's not true. Kashem shemalu lo yardu. If you put it on the mizbeach, don't take it off. Kachim yardu lo yalu. So it's not true that that's what he's saying because it says before-ish. You cannot put it back on if it falls off. Says the Gemara, there is a situation where if it falls off the mizbech, he could put it back on. If it went on, you weren't supposed to put it on, and the fire caught onto it, it charred it, and then it fell off. Then you're allowed to put it back on. Typically speaking, you're not allowed to put it back on, but over here, since the fire grabbed it, you're allowed to. Says the Gemara, Nami Amaro that we already. Ula himself said this once. You cannot put it back on if the fire grabbed it. If the fire didn't grab it, the fire grabbed it, you're allowed to put it back on. The same says Gemara, the same animili aver. The chiddush of Nula is if you have a piece of meat. So you have what? You have like let's say the thigh of an animal, of a cow. Imagine 5 feet long. 1 foot is on the fire and it charred it. But it's all one piece. But the kmitza is made out of millions of small particles of flour. So just because part of it went on doesn't mean the other part. And here's tremendous chiddush here the Gemara is going to say. Kamash v'lon. No, even part of the kmitza that was burnt, you leave it over there. You can put it back on. Omer Avachai, listen to this. Here it is. This will explain the whole thing. Hilgach. Haikoymetz pigol the palgi machas ara. Half of the kmitza he left on the floor, fell on the floor. It never went out to the mizbeach. Upalgi aski amarocha. And half he was able to get onto the mizbeach. Umosh lebayur. And the fire grabbed onto the part that's on the mizbeach. Masiknelei lekule lechatchila. You're permitted to take the stuff right off the floor, even though they were never connected. It's not like you put the whole thing on the mizbeach and part of it got charred. Half of it wasn't even on the mizbeach. Yet they have a connection together. They're connected. It's one kmitza. So since the part on the mizbeach was burnt, so you're allowed to take the part on the floor and put it on the mizbeach. Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Hapigol v'hanoiser v'hatomei. You have these three guys, either the machshav of pigol, left overnight, and tomei. She'el gam mizbeach. Hoka isur mehem. The isur flies away from them. So Rashi explains it's not exactly like we think. It's a little bit different. Pigul just means not that the Isser Pigul went away, but that if it fell off if it went off the mizbech, you could put it back on. Tomei would mean that not that it's not tomei, because you can never get tuma out of something, out of a piece of meat. Just it means that if you ate it, you're not chayiv. Omer Rav Chizda Mori Dachi. It's like a lashon of usually it's like Rebbeinu Shalom. Who's this? Who said this thing? Mizbeach mikveh tahara. What? The mizbeach is a mikveh, or no? But once, like we said before, once the fire grabbed it, charred it, so now it became like part of the mizbeach. It's the mizbeach owns it. Mazar Yisrael Avisla. Achirim oimrim. Oh, so we're going to have a little bit of a sugi soon. V'tumasay we actually discussed this in the past. V'tumasay olav. That the tum is on him. Who's on him? On who? Either him, the human being, or him, the piece of meat. So, as we're going to see soon, there's a few pshatim to prove that we're talking about the human being. Mishatuma parachas mimenu. So he says, and we're going to say it again, we're going to have Chazarah. The tum is upon him, meaning it's not in it, it's on it, that it could go away. if it itself is tumah, it can never go away. In other words, a piece of meat, the tumah can never go out of the piece of meat. Where could tumah go away from? From a human being. If you go into the mikvah, the tumah goes away. So the tumas olav must be referring to the human being, that it's possible for the tumah just to be olav temporarily, right now, but it could fly away later. Misha tumah parachas mimeno. Yotza basar shein tumah parachas mimeno. But meat, since it can never fly away, so it can't be referring to it. Ask the Gemara, but wait a minute, it does fly away in a way. V'misari tumah parachas mimeno. It's much better according to the Mesifta. V'misari tumah parachas mimeno al yidei or. No, but in the tumah, Rashi says, Akopanim, the tumah flies away from it once you put it in the fire, and the fire grabs onto it. When I said it doesn't fly away, the Torah is talking about a mikvah, not fire. What object or what being does the tumah fly away or go away when you go into a mikvah? That's a human being, not meat. It's a nice pshat what you're saying, that it's not the fire, it's the mikvah, but where does it say in the pasuk anything about a mikvah? Oh, you know what kind of meat doesn't work from fire? Shlama meat. You know why? The meat that's part of a carbon, I understand the fire comes and makes it like a mikvah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about shlama meat. The whole pasuk, we're talking about shlamim, and shlamim is not edible to the mizbech, it's for human beings, and therefore the fire won't be mitaret. Ravina Amar v'tumasay olav misha tuma parachas mimenu kshu shalem yotza basar. Shalem means as is the way it became tamei, that's the way the tumah goes away. But when you put meat on a flame, what happens? The first millisecond you put on the flame, it's going to shrink, even in a very minor way, but it's gonna change its shape, it's gonna change the size. There's gonna be a little bit missing from it, even the minute amount. That's not what the Torah said. So now we're just discussing these psukim. We're talking about the tumah of a human being. Who told you maybe it's the tumah? It says it's very hard to see from the pasuk. It says the tumasay olav. What are we talking about? Maybe it's the tumah of the meat itself. The pasuk later on by tumas migdash also says tumasay malahalan by beis hamikdash. But tumas haguf, we're talking about a human being going into the beis hamikdash. Like I'll just show it as I speak right over here. This guy touches a dead person and he walks into the beis hamikdash. Afkan, the tumas haguf, hakasim medaber. Rabbi Yossi Omer hoyo v'nemru kachim b'loshen rabim, v'nemru tumah b'loshen yachid. It says over here, check this out. Hashlamim, plural. And then it says tumasay alav in singular. If it was referring to the shlamim, to the carbon, it should say v'tumasam aleihem. So alav is referring to a human being. Since it says right here, it must be it's talking about the human being. Why? Gemara is going to explain. This is what we had before. How do I know it's a human being? Because a human being, the tumah could evaporate from him when he goes into the mikvah, whereas the meat, it remains tamei forever. Omar Mar, Rabbi Yomer v'ochal b'tumas haguf akasim medaber. My mashma, where in this passage that you see on the screen, v'ochal besides Zevachim, does it talk about a human being? Omar Rava, Kol Krod le'mefarish le Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi v'chomaslis le'mefarish. Any pasuk that is difficult to understand, and you didn't hear a pshat from Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi, you didn't understand it. V'chomaslis le'mefarish le Rav Ziri, if you don't hear, or from Ziri, any brisa that's difficult, which the Gemara is going to explain soon what brisa we're talking about, le'mefarish, you didn't understand pshat. Hakan Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi, he explained the pasuk. Hoy le pasuk hakaz b'loshen nekeva, v'sim b'loshen nekeva. Here in pink. V'nefesh kisiga is nekeva. V'nichus ha'nefesh ha'im ha'meh on the bottom is nekeva. In the middle it says v'ochal. V'tubas ha'guf ha'kosim medaber. Okay, why? So he says, because look at the next pasuk. The next pasuk also. V'nefesh ha'tadeicha basar. V'tumas ha'yolav. V'nichus ha'nefesh ha'im ha'meh. In other words, when the pasuk has Zachar and Nekeva mixed in, this pasuk for sure is talking about the human being. So Mela, this pasuk also, have no fear, is talking about the human being. Masnisa, and then what is this brisa that we're talking about? Wow, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but we got to do it. Masnisa the sanyo nemru kalois loma nemru chamurois v'nemru chamurois loma nemru kalos. Let me just show you real quickly. There's two categories of kal and chomer. Kal and chomer can mean the type of tumah that you comes from, the sheret, the dead rat, or a human being that's dead. What's more chomer? A human being. Because if you touch a human beings aviyah v'isa tumah, you go, every time you touch tumah, you go down one level. So what do you become if you touch a dead person? Avatuma. But a sheret is a avatuma. So when you touch it, what do you become? A rishon. Meiser Sheni is much lighter than Truma, as we're going to see, because Meiser Sheni, if you are Tomei and you go into a mikvah, you're able to eat Meiser Sheni right away, right when you come out of the mikvah. You don't have to wait for Erev Shemesh. But when it comes to Truma, you have to wait for Erev Shemesh. It's more Chomer. So we don't know exactly what's going on here. It's a riddle. If it says the Torah talks about that you should not eat kal, then certainly not chamor. The Gemara is going to explain everything. And if it says that you can't eat betuma chamor, so certainly kal. So the Bryce explains. If the Torah would only say the lesser one, I would say that everybody, all the lighter ones, you get malchus, and all the harsher ones, you get death penalty. And that's why it says chamuros, which we have to explain because chamuros does get the death penalty. And if the Torah would only say chamur, nakal, I would say, what? I would say that, yeah, the Torah starts saying on the chamur, but on kal you don't get anything. You don't get malchus at all. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain. My kalis, my chamuris. What does it mean? Eli kalis, meiser, chamuris, truma. We're going to go with the two guys on the bottom. Meiser sheni is kal and truma is chamur. So truma, Eli kalis, meiser, chamuris, truma. Hayisi omer b'misa. I would have thought that it's misa. Hashanami b'misa. It says mafurish in the pasuk. Here, umeisu boy. It's a pasuk. It's not hayisi omer. I would say. It's mafurish. Viloy nemru, and another one. Another question. Viloy nemru hayisi omer b'misa. And if it didn't say chamurus, it only said kal. So what if you're kal? If you're the light one, what do you get as a punishment? Malchus. How would I derive from that if you're chamer, you get misa? We have a klal. If I'm learning this case from this case, the most I could get is what the top of this case. In other words, I'm learning the chomer from the kal, and the kal only gets malchus, so the chomer will get malchus. I can't say, oh, but it's so chomer it should get the death penalty. Where did you come up with the death penalty? Let me just say the words. Elokalois, we have to say that we're talking about these guys, the guys on top. Sherets versus mace. Elokalois doing sherets. Chomer doing mace. Ubemai. Ibit truma, and what happened? Ibit truma idividi ubemisa. If we're talking about truma, it doesn't matter how you became tamei, through a sheretz or through a dead person, you get the death penalty. The chamer is only a lav. Habamisi, what do you mean it's a lav? You get misa. V'bachilas meiser, and then we're talking about that he only ate meiser sheni either through sheretz or mace. How would I say that a chamer gets misa but to sheretz kas, and you have the same exact question? If you're learning everything from a sheretz, this is what Zeiri explained. Beautiful pshat. Take a look. Let me just show it to you on the screen, and you'll chop everything. Look at this. It means like this. Kal ta kal. If you touch a sheretz and you eat meiser sheni, what do you get? A lav, you get malchus. But if you go from kal to chomer, what do you get? Get misa. So says Zeiri, this is not a kal v'chomer, Rabbi Yisai. What did I just see? That from kal to chomer, from sheretz to truma, you get the death penalty. That's in the Torah. From kal to chomer is misa. Memela, from kal to chomer is misa, or from chomer to kal is misa. It's not a kal v'chomer. From sheretz to truma is misa. So from misa to meiser sheni should also be, from mace to meiser sheni should also be misa. In other words, this guy. If I could go from kal, from the top right, to the chomer, bottom left, and give it misa, so I could go from chomer to kal and give it misa. It's the same thing. It's not a kal v'chomer. Omer Ziri, kal is tumas sheretz, chamur is tumas meis. V'chi kamer, and this is what he meant to say. Ilu nemar tumas sheretz, v'nemar meiser u'truma. It would say 3 out of the 4. It would say sheretz, it wouldn't say meis. V'nemar meiser, v'truma, v'lo nemro, tumas meis. It wouldn't say tumas meis. Ha'isi oimer kalis ala kalis v'lav, v'la chamur is b'misa. If I go from truma to sheretz, you get misa. And since from sheretz to truma is misa, chamur is namal ala kalis b'misa. So too from the meis, tumas meis, to meiser sheni is misa. But that's not true. Meiser sheni, you don't get misa l'kach. Nemru chamurois. That's why it says in the Torah chamurois. Rabboisai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.